Good afternoon. It's 1 o'clock, and I'm Dave Barry. I'm going to convene this meeting today for the board since our president and vice president aren't here today yet. Emily, will you call roll?
Sure. Christine Barr. Dave Barry.
Here.
Sue Busenbark.
Here.
Judy Crocker. Gwen Gregory.
Here.
Kate Hall. Laura Keys.
Here.
Kate Hall.
Here. Despite 294's best efforts.
Paul Mills.
Thank you.
Scott Poynton.
Here.
Dee Runnels.
Here.
Nadia Shake.
Here.
Michelle Simmons. Did Dee say yes? Dee Runnels is here?
Yes.
Okay. Nadia, I have. Michelle Simmons. We have a quorum.
Okay.
And,
Thank you very much to Dave Barry for filling in while I was trying to battle traffic on 294 to get here. So let's move on to recognition of guests and announcements. We'll start here in Burr Ridge. Dee, did you want to start us off?
Yes, Dee Brennan, Rails.
Jane Plas, Rails.
Emily Feister, Rails.
Ryan Hubble, Rails.
Veranda Pitchford, Rails.
Joe Philippek, Rails.
Jim Krieger, Rails.
Mary Witt, Rails.
Amanda Masaccio, Rails.
Great. Do we have anyone in Bolingbrook? It's dark, so it doesn't look like it. Do we have anyone in East Peoria?
Hello, this is Kendall Larson from Rails, and I am the only one here, so I think I'm going to go watch this on the live stream.
Oh, okay, Kendall. Well, we'll wave to you occasionally on the video cam.
I will
Through the
enjoy
live
that.
stream. All right, and the Illinois State Library. We can't hear you. Are you muted by chance?
I'm sorry, I pressed the button not hard enough, apparently. This is Gwen Harrison at the State Library.
And Joe Natale.
Great, nice to see you guys.
Yes.
Bye-bye.
And it doesn't look like we have anyone in Galesburg or in Vernon. Do we have any guests on the phone? Okay. Do we have any public comments at any of our sites? Okay, then we'll move on to adoption of the agenda. Could I have a motion to adopt the agenda?
So moved.
Thanks, Dave. And a second?
Second.
I think
All right, we'll give it to Gwen. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Great. Next up, we have the minutes from our February 23rd, 2018 regular meeting. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved. Sue Busenbark.
Thanks, Sue. Second?
I'll second it. This is Laura Keys.
Okay, thanks, Laura. Is there any discussion on the minutes? All right, hearing none. All those in favor of approving the minutes from February 23rd, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Or any abstentions?
Dee Runnels, I
Oh, D. Okay, thanks, D. We've marked your abstention. Next, we'll invite Jim up to give the monthly financial report.
This is the monthly financial report for the month of through February 28th. The highlights are we had $13.2 million of cash and investments in the general fund at the end of the month, and that would fund additional about 14.2 months of operations. The February 1st receipt of $3,962,120, which was the balance of our fiscal year 17 appropriation, certainly helped. Added about 4 months. And in addition, on March 22nd, we received a third payment, APC, Aryan per capita grant payment of $1,614,386, which isn't in these numbers yet, but that would fund about 1.7 months. So we've received so far about 36% of the fiscal year 18 appropriation, which is better than the pace of last year, certainly. And we also have an additional cash balance of $3.1 million in the capital projects fund. Our revenues now are pretty close to budget because of the $3.9 million pertaining to fiscal year 17 goes into the fiscal year 18 records, but at least we're getting up there close. We're about $525,000 below budget. So we are, and I had in here the timing of the remaining, which was then $7.9 million, is uncertain, and so it's a little less uncertain since we got $1.6 million this month. The investment income continues to go very strong, and we should approximately at least double the $65,000 budgeted for the year. Interest rates have gone up again. Illinois Funds is up to about 1.5 now, and our CDs for 6 months are at 1.62. So that's an additional boost. On the expenses side, the general fund is $686,000 below budget. $339,000 of that is salary or is personnel related costs. I like those variances because they usually stick. Once you've incurred them, you have them for the rest of the year, and they continue to run favorable. We had now in the financial report, we're also going to start reporting the hirees for the month and terminations as we used to do in the operations report. We only had one termination, the delivery services manager in Rockford this last month. Another nice thing that happened was that we received notice that our unemployment rate charge has been cut by 50% beginning in calendar year 2018. It's gone from 4.25% to 2.125% of the first $12,960,000 in salaries. So that will be a nice boost for about $15,000 favorable for the rest of this fiscal year, and approximately double that for the next fiscal year budget. That is pretty much it on the highlights. Our delivery and LSAP expenditures continue to be about 50% of our total general fund expenditures. Can I answer any questions?
I would just like to point out, a point of clarification. I know that we write this in the report, but that terminations refers to anyone leaving Rails for any reason. Just as a point of clarity. Right. So yes, does anyone have any questions for Jim? All right, hearing no questions then, I would entertain a motion to approve the financial report for February 2018. Thanks, Scott.
Second.
Thanks, Dave. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed? Great. And as per usual, Jim, you are up again with the monthly expenditures.
The monthly expenditure listing is at the end of the financial report. The total expenditures for the month of February were $750,768.43. Are there any questions on the specifics?
I just wanted to say thank you for, in the description, noting which site it was for everything. No, I'd asked about that previously.
Yeah,
that was
we
very
tried to do
helpful.
that, sure.
So thank you very much. Hearing no other questions, I would entertain a motion to approve expenditures for February 2018. It looks like we just had someone join us, perhaps?
Yeah, it's Michelle. I'm sorry, I'm a bit late.
Oh, hey, Michelle. That's okay. I was late too, so it's all good.
Thank you.
Sure. So I would entertain a motion to approve expenditures for February 2018 in the amount of $750,760.43. Thanks, Dave. And a second?
Second.
Thanks, Gwen. Emily, would you please call roll?
Sure. Dave Barry.
Yes.
Sue Busenbark.
Yeah.
Gwen Gregory.
Yes.
Kate Hall.
Yes.
Laura Keys.
Yes.
Scott Poynton.
Yes.
Dee Runnels.
Yeah.
Nadia Sheikh.
Yes.
Michelle Simmons.
Yes.
Okay, Jim, thank you so much for your report.
It's a pleasure.
Moving on to reports, I don't have much to report, but it is approaching evaluation time for Dee, and so she is working on her self-evaluation, which she'll send to me, and I'll be sending that out to all of the board members and asking you all to fill out an evaluation, which I will then compile, and that we will then talk about at a future board meeting. This is really important that we have every board member participate so that we can all contribute to providing feedback for Dee and highlighting the work that she has done over the previous year. So look for that probably around the second or third week in April from me, and you'll have about a month to put it together, to fill it out and turn it back in. That was all I had on my report, so we'll move on to committees. Paul is not here, but there was no consortia committee meeting, right?
Correct. We are meeting April 23rd.
April 23rd, which is coming up.
Yes.
And there was no executive committee meeting. I know Laura is not here, but there was not a policy committee meeting either, so no report there. Dee, do you have anything from Charm for the resource sharing?
No, they haven't met,
Right, I didn't think they
right?
had.
Or did they meet?
Yeah, I believe.
I've lost track
The first
of.
meeting was shortly after the February board meeting. Our first meeting was on February 26th.
That's right. Yeah.
We had a good discussion of resource sharing in general, perceptions, issues, just to get everybody acquainted with one another and the issues. Decided on a meeting schedule, so the next meeting will be June 11th. We'll be meeting quarterly.
Great, thanks, Jane. All right, so then, Dee, would you like to give us your monthly report?
Thank you. So first of all, you'll see that the reports look different and are different. So hopefully they will be more useful to you. As I said in my memo, we have talked about this on a number of occasions over the past few years. And I think the main point is that we want to be sure that we are able to fully describe or inform the board about our activities, and we're hoping that this format will be more conducive to that. So we will be maybe live with this for a couple of months, and then have a more in-depth discussion about it. But I'd be happy if anybody has any comments now or any questions about it.
Do we have any questions or comments on the phone?
Or here in the room?
This is Nadia.
Yes.
And I just wanted to say I actually really like the format.
Pardon me?
I just wanted to say I really like the format.
Oh, great. Okay.
I would second that.
Okay.
Yes. So thank you, Dee,
Good.
and I'm sure
Okay.
Mary and
Yes.
her staff for
Yes.
helping with that.
So, but I think they tell a story, which is which is, I think, good, because obviously, tells a story. So, but I'm glad to hear today that you like them. Yes. At least a couple of you do, but if going forward, anything else comes up, this is a process, so we'll continue to work on it.
I would, this just popped into my head.
Yes.
So I would say that, and you did this in this one, a little bit of like anything of note that we should be aware of that maybe just as if someone asks us a question to include at the beginning. I think that is very helpful, so that when we're out, if we're talking to other libraries, that we're not like, I have no idea what you're talking about. What is this?
Yeah,
Did
well,
we don't thing of which you speak. No, just
we
kidding,
don't
Rhonda.
ever want that to happen.
So, but I like the deeper dive, and it made it easier for me to copy for the Rails report I give to my board. So thank you.
That's good. Okay. And to just sort of go into it a little bit more, in a little bit more depth, a couple of things. So you saw that we did write a bit about our delivery project with the Laboratory for Applied Spatial Analysis. The point of this obviously is to see if we can find efficiencies and cost savings in the way we do delivery now. So we'll be talking with you more about that later on. I don't know what impact we might see in our FY19 budget and plan of service, but certainly I think by FY20 there'll be some. And we'll be talking with the State Library about it too, because obviously they're keenly interested. We did receive the area and per capita grant application. It is due June 1st. And as we have done in past years, we have presented to the board at the April meeting kind of a high-level draft of what our plan of service might be and what the budget will look like, because then it has to be approved at the May meeting. So it seems to have worked, so we'll just keep doing that. And Mary's already had a great start on that. Speaking of the April meeting, it's going to be in East Peoria, the main, a lot of us will be traveling down here. Mitchell is from BiblioBoards is going to be in town all that week. He will be here in Burr Ridge to speak to the board. And I know you will be in Vernon. So it will be yet another interesting technical situation that we have. Also in April, we will have a report on the standards, and was there something else? No, I guess not. And then two other smaller things. Mary has sent out to you all a survey. We're evaluating how we onboard, orient, educate, whatever, the board, and we've gotten back 9, I think, so that's great. But we'd love to get back 15 surveys, so just want to remind you. And we are working on our logo and our brand. It's been 5 years, needs to be updated. Specifically, however, the current Rails logo does directly reference the Talking Book services, which we don't unfortunately provide anymore, so that's a more specific reason it needs to be updated. So at a certain point, we will involve the board in some user testing kind of thing. So, okay. I think that's it. Any questions?
No questions for Dee? All right, then thank you very much, Dee. We will move on to the Illinois State Library for their report.
Well, hello. This is Gwen.
Hello.
I thought Joe was giving it. He says, no, it's you. I'm like, okay.
We'll fight over it now.
Yeah. So the FY19 library system area and per capita grant applications were sent out via email and paper to the system directors and board presidents. They are due June 1st, as you reported. Questions to Pat Bowles or Debbie Agri, if you have any. The back to book grant applications are due today, March 30th, and must be in the correct format and have a date and time stamp of that date. Approximately 200 applications have been received, and they're still coming. The Illinois History Digital Imaging Grant applications are due April 16th. Sandy Fritz is the contact. Letters about literature and spotlight on literacy ceremonies will be held April 30th at the Illinois State Library. Elevate will be held April 28th at the University of Illinois at Springfield. This is a collaborative effort between ILA, Rails, IHLS, and the State Library. Thanks to all that are serving on this committee. And finally, the Directors University will be held at the State Library June 5th through 8th. And that is our report. Are there any questions?
I have a non-Rails question. I was at a couple director meetings this week, and talk came up, as it inevitably does, about the per capita grant funds. I know last month the report was that they thought that the rest of the payments would come out in the next few weeks, and I mentioned this to them, that I thought we should be receiving them quickly. But do you guys have an update on when the libraries that haven't yet received theirs, Northbrook being one of them, but this is more on behalf of others?
Yeah, and this probably is not totally the answer you want to hear. I know that Greg has been working with the new person who's taking over the job of calculating payments, and for the past 2 days he's been working on those public library per capita calculations. So the calculations are being made. When the payment's made, but there is progress. If that's a you accept that?
That's very helpful. No, yeah, absolutely. Because then we know that work is being done. That's always a comforting thought.
So I have if you don't mind, just a follow-up question, Joe. So there's a new person doing the calculations. You mean at the State Library?
Right. Who's doing the grant, the grant programs, all the getting like I don't want to use acronyms. Getting all the paperwork in place so it can go through the budget office, and just that, I hate to say, clerical, administrative work that needs to be done, the bureaucracy and the red tape.
Right. I gotcha. Okay.
He's very diligent and he's very quiet. I asked him, he said, you're so quiet, he says, I have to concentrate.
I mean, I appreciate that he's concentrating.
Yeah, right, I know, right?
That's a great thing.
Yeah.
I was just curious.
Which means get out of my office, I'm busy.
Yeah.
And I was just one other thing. I don't know. I hope this is a pleasant piece of news for you, Gwen. But actually, it looks like Elevate is going to be at the State Library because
I think it is. I think you're right.
Okay. All right. I just didn't. All right. I know. I'm pretty sure that Laura is going to be there. I didn't want her to panic since she's at the meeting and go to the wrong place, and I just wanted to be in the minutes that it's going to be. And what did you want to say, Scott?
So I had another follow-up about the per capita grants. So as a public library representative, one of the things that I'm most often asked is what decides the order that those checks go out in? Because no one's ever been able to give us an answer from the State Library. Is it alphabetical by the name of the library? Is it the order in which we filed our grant applications?
I think it's in the order that the comptroller decides to pay out.
That's the answer.
Looking at how much money they have, and then they're probably saying
Yeah.
which ones total this much, and then paying
So
it.
it's like puzzle pieces. They're just looking at how much money
No,
can go
right.
out this month, and they're randomly picking a number of libraries that fit that amount, and then just sending those out the door.
I don't think there's any rhyme or reason, but if I'll check with Craig and we'll get back to you, and maybe if we're giving you the wrong answer, we'll correct it. But we don't. I think that's just what they decide to pay out.
That's exactly how it's been with all of our other programs. There is
And
no
my
rhyme.
understanding is that there's only one differentiation, which is that if, I know, and I don't know if this is still true, but like with the federal funding that comes in for some of the per capita grants, if that money is received, then those libraries that are getting the LSTA funds get those first, and then the rest of us get ours later. Is that still accurate?
That still holds today. It does.
Okay. Yeah, so that piece at least explains a little bit of it. So yeah. Thank you.
And then one final thing, which is that the statement, your statement of economic interest is due, and I think you probably got an email about that.
Yes.
It's due May 1st.
And we should send the certificate once we've completed it to Emily to be filed.
And if you did not get an email from Cook County, please let me know as soon as possible.
So, Dee, can I add to the concerning Elevate? Karen just came to tell me that Greg has blessed it being held here. We're just trying to work through logistics with the building, the folks that are in charge of the building, to make sure we can get everybody signed off on it being held here. So she said, don't panic, we're working on it. Okay.
All right, well, I might panic, but okay, I'll try not to.
I was told
Just
to
don't
assure
tell
you
Betsy.
Yeah,
Don't
she
tell
really wanted that
Betsy.
message to go to. She wanted Betsy to know that specifically. She named Betsy's name. So,
Betsy, if you're
Okay.
listening, I hope that you breathe a sigh
Betsy,
of
I
relief.
hope you're not listening.
All right. Do we have any other questions for the State Library? All right. Thank you guys so much. We appreciate all of your report and all of the follow-up information you provided today.
thank you.
So moving on to new business, we do have a membership change to discuss. So I'd ask Amanda Masaccio to come on up and tell us about a potential new member.
All right, thanks. So, on March 5th, I visited Agudath Israel of Illinois and determined this library meets Rails membership requirements. I recommend the Rails board votes to recommend Rails membership of this library to the Illinois State Library. This organization learned about Rails by contacting the state library about the E-rate program. The librarian there was not familiar with Rails previously, and she was very excited and impressed to hear about what Rails offers. They are particularly interested in learning more about interlibrary loan and the continuing education opportunities that Rails provides. So I will be following up with them about interlibrary loan training. Any questions? Yes.
I was just wondering where the library is located.
It is in the North Park neighborhood of Chicago, so on the very far north side, central side, so yes. They're in the Jewish community, a community organization within there.
Great. Do we have any other questions for Amanda? All right, well, thank you so much for all of your work on this. I would entertain a motion to recommend, I don't have the name. Thank you. Agudath Israel of Illinois to the Illinois State Library for membership in Rails.
So moved.
Thanks, Dave. Oh, Laura, we'll give Laura the second.
Please.
Okay. And all those in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Wonderful. Thanks so much, Amanda.
Thank you.
Next up, are we inviting Jim back up?
You know, I was going to suggest, Madam President, that since Paul requested
That we
this,
table this?
Right, that we just defer it until April this was a discussion, we had a brief discussion at the last meeting about the fact that we have, as Jim reported earlier today, we do have money that was set aside by the board in a capital projects fund. And then Paul had requested that we, bless you, have a discussion about that. But since he is not here, and he is the treasurer, I thought maybe it would be...
Sure. I think that that's a good
okay with
idea.
everyone.
And if anyone does, in reading this, if you had some questions that you had already formulated, I would encourage you to email them to Dee so that we can pass them along to Jim to give him time if they need preparation before next month's meeting. So,
Exactly.
Great.
Thank you.
Then we will move right on to system membership standards. And Dee is going to talk to us a little bit about this.
Yeah, so there is a memo in your packet. And just for board members new this year, we've been working on standards for quite a while now, as you can see from my memo, since 2014. Kathy Parker were here, she would be glaring at me, but she's
Forever.
not.
We've been working on them forever, she would say. Yeah.
So, but anyway, so last May, the Rails board approved draft standards with and included in that motion was that we would test them and review and not implement them, that the board would then review the draft standards by their no later than the May meeting for possible changes and other, analysis, discussion, all of that. So we did the test, and we are getting ready to bring them back to you in the next couple of months as was required. So this is just a preliminary report. In April, we're going to be giving you a redlined version of what we're suggesting to be changes. We learned a lot from the test. It was perhaps not as meaningful as it might have been, just because we really need to create the perfect way for libraries to report, and we couldn't do that. So it was a little awkward, and I think that probably affected some of the answering. But we did learn a lot about some of the specific standards that we had, that they were too specific, as I say in here, about related to policies, requiring a specific customer service policy as opposed to a policy that that calls for good customer service, that
You're
kind of thing.
so very literal.
Yes, exactly. Well, that, but when you're, that's, yes. So, so other, issues related to, gathering input from the community, what does that mean? The issue about buildings is that, so many of our libraries are not new and, built for the technology age, and that, libraries are struggling to do the best they can with the buildings that they have until they can make them better or perfect or whatever. And I think that we need to make it clear to libraries that we're not, through the standards, we're not expecting everybody to have a brand new building. We're just expecting that that they will do the best they can, somehow. So we need to get that across. We did ask some supplementary questions related to the collection expenditure standards, because one of the issues that the state library had raised with us was that a sizable number of libraries wouldn't meet the 8% base, percent of your budget spent on collections, just based on what the state library collects in IPLAR. But we asked how much libraries are spending on some electronic collections that aren't included in IPLAR. We asked how much they're spending on an online catalog or membership in a consortium or a interlibrary loan utility, because all of those provide access, and we think that that's fair, and it should be included. And that pretty much eliminated most of the libraries not meeting that standard. So we were very pleased about that. So anyway, we're going to keep analyzing it. There were libraries of all types in the test. Libraries from Heartland were in the test. All of the libraries in Heartland, by the way, met the collection standard. So we're still working on, things related to training and all that. So anyway, so we will be reporting back to you in April. You will see that I have some preliminary thoughts on implementation. The major one being, I think, that we really need to do a year of just data collection, because it's just hard to get accurate data that you can really verify, and until we're sure that we have a process that works, we can't start messing around with people's access to system services, to put it bluntly. So I think that'll take a lot of the pressure off. We're still, I think, making really good progress in terms of getting libraries to be thinking about ways in which they need to, be progressing on the pathway to excellence and thinking about standards. I think that also gives us a lot more time to work with the State Library in Heartland to get these implemented. So I'm feeling good about them. I know it will be 5 years by the time we're done, but it's a big undertaking. So I'm happy to answer any questions about this process, especially from anybody who.
I have a comment rather than a
yeah.
question. Monday night was our monthly board meeting at the Bartlett Public Library District, and we had received a report about the 5-star libraries and how we could do that. And the report was more or less, it came down to, it's out of our control, individual libraries' control. If you meet certain standards in a particular year that's on a curve, you may or may not get it. Right. Then you may lose it. What I appreciate about these standards, it's telling libraries what they can do and what we can do as a board in order to meet them. So I think we've gone a long way just with having a set of standards. It might not be all the way worked out yet, but at least you're going to give in boards, okay, this is what we have to do in order to move forward and to show our communities what we're doing for them. Thank you.
Thank you, and that's the goal. And we want, I think part of the whole process is communicating that to people, as opposed to making them feel that we're penalizing them, that we're excluding them, that we don't respect them, all those things. So thank you, Dave. You were on the committee, so
right.
You've been there since the beginning.
Scott, did you have?
No, I was just agreeing that, I think the wrong way to look at these is, well, we work hard and we do a good job, and now these are making me feel bad. Well, that's not what it's about. It's something to strive for, and it's, there's always that next level that you can try to take it to.
I also think it gives us a consistent platform to advocate for libraries from. If we say that these are the standards that we are holding ourselves accountable to, when we go and talk to our legislators and we say this is why funding is important, because these are what our community expects, and this is what we expect from ourselves, and we need your support to help us ensure that we're meeting these. So it gives us a very clear, consistent message that we'll be able to use.
And I think that obviously I agree. We agree. That's the Rails staff. I think that's the message we want to bring to people, and I think. But I understand the difficulty. This is new, and it exists in other states, and I think when we look at some of the things that they do in, for example, Iowa. I mean, it's very rigorous. I mean, every year there's a lot of requirements, and so I think it's a process, and we're also really pleased at this time that ILA, Illinois Library Association, is redoing a committee redoing Serving Our Public, and Veranda and I are sort of tag teaming on that one, going to their meetings and making sure that, things are going to be aligned, so.
And serving our public has a lot in it that focuses on like best practices and
Yes.
what collection size you should have and staffing size and budgetary expenditures, and so that's wonderful that is being done.
Yeah.
So I'm presuming, but I'll just ask the question, with the standards and also the work on the strategic plan, are we able to take any of the additional kind of information that we culled and use that to help inform pieces of the strategic plan as well? Like, I'm thinking of the building and technology infrastructure stuff, and is that something, I know that kind of came up and we're going to be talking about that next, but are there pieces in here that we can also integrate
into the standards,
into the strategic plan?
Oh,
because this is going to be,
plan.
the standards obviously I'm sure will be part of it, but the information gathered here potentially might serve some, provide additional data points, because I'm sure that's exactly what Mary wants. Like, let's put more data into it, but
Right, it's all related.
Interconnected.
Yep.
So does anyone on the phone have any questions or comments for Dee? All right,
No,
and
thank
Laura,
you.
okay. I didn't pause long
Nope.
enough. Laura, do you have anything?
I don't have anything to add right now, other than I think it's a good idea to concentrate on the data collection. So good job.
Thanks.
Thanks, Laura, and thank you, Dee, and all of the Rails staff. I know that this has been an ongoing process, and that even just since we did the preliminary approval last year, that you guys have done a lot of work. So it's appreciated that we're doing it right and not just doing it to get it done. So, all right. So then let's move on and talk about the strategic plan.
Right. So we have one more session, which is next week, with academic libraries. Thanks to Gwen for assisting in setting that up. It's Thursday? I think Thursday. And we have a number of people signed up who are coming here, so that's great. So as you can see in my memo, we've already had 4 in person, and then we had 2 webinar kind of go-to-meeting sessions with special librarians and school librarians that were very helpful. And the needs assessment will go out next week, and that's very much based on what we've already heard. So you can see just the bulleted list there of some of the top things that we've heard. The unserved continues to come up. It really came up in the session we had at Glenwood Linwood, not far from here, so not out in a more rural section at all, but in a place where libraries are, surrounded not only by unserved, but by so-called paper libraries, which is a whole different problem. But anyway, and then there's, the issue of safety, which is just like, it has shocked me how much of a concern that is in just everywhere. So anyway, I think we've made really, these have been great conversations that we've had. I was just at PLA, we'll be talking about that later, but one of the sessions that I went to was about curriculum, library school curriculum, and the skill sets that new librarians need, and it was very much about, diversity of users and social ills and telling the story of library. So there's a lot of serendipity, I guess.
And I think I just read the LJ, the Library Journal Movers and Shakers.
Yeah, you can see it there.
And that there as well, you see all of these things reflected.
Yeah.
So it's definitely not just a trend here, but it's a trend in the larger library landscape.
It's very interesting. It's almost, think a swing back towards, away from tech, technology in libraries to the high touch in libraries in terms of staff, serving people. I did a podcast with Joliet Public Library the other day and about their services to homeless residents, or as they call them, unsheltered residents, and how they love the idea of libraries being able to hire social workers, as some of our libraries have been able to do, but realistically most libraries will never be able to do that, and really the entire library staff needs to be engaged in, being part of the solution for services to all residents. So very interesting what's going on out there. So anyway, so we should have a draft, we hope, of something to you by May. So, after we organize everything we hear. So it's going to be a busy spring for the board.
Is there anything that we can do to help after the survey goes out to all the member libraries? I know,
Fill it out.
Yeah, I mean, I will make sure that we fill ours out.
Get your colleagues engaged.
It's open to any staff members. That was your suggestion, which I liked a lot.
Oh, was it?
Hear from all.
Look at that.
Staff, so any staff person at any library, we're looking for feedback.
And board members.
Board members can fill it out.
Right?
Sure.
Did we? Okay.
Sure.
And so I would just, ask that the other board members, if you go to networking groups or have other meetings, to just mention this. We'll know when you get it because it will come to you. And to just remind people that the more feedback they give, the better the strategic plan will be in meeting the needs of all of the libraries that we serve in Rails. So, yeah. Great. Any questions for Dee on the strategic plan update? Great. Hearing none, we'll move on to board development, where we're going to talk about the Public Library Association conference that happened a week ago with the saddest snowstorm I have ever seen. It was 3 inches, and 2 of my staff members couldn't get in. Anyway, sorry, side note.
No, yes. So we just, a number of Rail staff went, and I know some of you all went, so we just thought it would be good if people who went chimed in about it. So who wants to start? Scott can tell us horror stories about dealing with the. I thought that program that you were describing about the big libraries was good too.
Sure, it was a good conference. I thought I would save my library a few dollars and stay at the farthest away conference hotel, which is about 4 blocks away. So I managed to catch a cold walking back and forth in the great blizzard of 18 Philadelphia. But
no norovirus.
No.
That's a good.
One of the better sessions that I attended was I can't remember the title of the talk, but they had administrators from 4 large metropolitan public libraries, which were Seattle, Detroit, Cleveland, and Philadelphia, on a panel discussing, they probably all share the same set of challenges, but each library has specifically chosen to dial in on one social issue to really focus on and throw a lot of resources at in their respective towns. Seattle, it was homelessness. Detroit, it was early childhood literacy. Cleveland was poverty, child poverty especially, and hunger. Children can't learn if they're hungry, that whole thing. And then Philadelphia was the opioid epidemic. So it was really interesting to see them just really plainly talk about these issues and what they're doing to meet those challenges. Kind of humbling to see the problems that exist and the extent that they exist in those cities, but also gratifying to see the amount of resources they have at their disposal to throw at these problems and try to address them head on. Having to make a decision like, wow, in Detroit, less than 15% of third graders can read at a third grade level. how do we turn this train around? You have to make hard decisions like, well, they don't say it in these terms, but essentially let's write off everybody that's third grade and above right now and take the kids younger than that and really focus on fixing this problem with them so that, the generations to come won't be in that same boat. And, I understand the logic of that, but that's
it's a brutal decision.
Tough. That's a brutal decision to have to make, but they're tackling the problem and getting results, so it's pretty cool to see.
Yeah. Wow. I think there was definitely a theme of dealing with social issues and community engagement throughout. But Dave, I know you attended.
Yes, the snowstorm was very sad. But the conference was very good. I attended one session put on by 4 libraries, 3 from Illinois. One was Skokie, Niles Library, Wilmington Library, and the New York Public Library. They lend out mobile hotspots.
Yeah.
And how it works for them. And first I came there saying, okay, for people that don't have money, it's a great thing. But they also brought up situations where, hey, we're going to go to grandma's this weekend, and she doesn't have access, and the kids are going to just burn through the data plan on it. So it's a way for the weekend. They don't have to go into that, that helps them. The New York Public Library lends out thousands of hotspots each year. Now, they do limit it to the parent of a school-aged child, and it's just for the school year. But they had some great information. I'll be passing that along to you at the next meeting. Thank you.
And I think that gets to the question of, are you addressing an equity issue, or are you trying to add a value-added service? And that really is going to depend on your community, and that there's nothing wrong with doing a value-added if the people in your community are generally having their technology needs met, but that it can become a critical library service for others in creating equity.
Exactly. I was just thinking what we're trying to do with access for information across the state.
Yep.
Would this be a help out?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yep. Well, I think about just the last 2 libraries that I've been at, similar community sizes, vastly different budgets, and that in New Lenox, there were people that the library was their only source of internet, whereas in Northbrook, our patrons are largely like, well, we just want it because it's a little faster. Like, we come here because I can get, I can stream something much more quickly. Like, that's a very different level. And how do we balance that so that people are getting the access to information in the same way, or at an equal format? So, I will mention, so there's one that I will mention briefly that Veranda will chuckle at. You will, because it's about spreadsheets. And it's called, it was called Operationalizing Your Strategic Plan from the Cedar Rapids Public Library. And they talked about how to, you do all the work to put the strategic plan in place. And we just, a couple months ago, my board approved ours. But then how do you actually roll it out to your staff and your community and do all of these things that you have now said? And they created a really beautiful spreadsheet, and it was beautiful, not just because I love spreadsheets, that had a very clear graphic on the first worksheet, and then had subsequent worksheets that laid out all of the different action plans and who was responsible with key performance indicators and milestones, and it just had everything in one place, and it was a thing of beauty. So, all right, I am waiting to get the spreadsheet. They haven't posted it. I have been checking daily. I've also emailed the presenter, who was fantastic. But I highly recommend it if any of you have a strategic plan, or even, I think it could work for any multi-point project to talk about how all the pieces tie together, which is something that I think can be lost when you have these really large projects.
Good point.
So I will also say, though, that I thought one of the big idea speakers was really fantastic, and that was Tim Wu, who talked about net neutrality and the flow of information, and like the key question that he says he asks himself is, what is the relationship between the flow of information and democracy? And that how much he appreciated how libraries advocate for the free flow of information, and that it should be the user deciding what information they want, not us deciding for the user, but that there are many models that are in place that we're seeing now because they went to like a fee-based structure like Facebook and Google with ads, have become incredibly problematic, as we now have seen play out in the last few weeks with Facebook. And so he talks about just the crisis of attention that is happening, and how it is so much harder to get messages like net neutrality out and to get the free flow of information and vet that information, because people's attention is so scattershot and is so hard to capture. And he says that is largely because of how these for-profit businesses have set themselves up, but that if we set ourselves up with something like Wikipedia, where they're actually asking, like they ask for donors, but that it's basically more free, that would actually change the way we are all processing and digesting information, because it wouldn't be people battling for our attention, but instead allowing us to choose what gets our attention, which I thought was really fascinating. He has a new book out called The Attention Merchants, which I have not read yet, but which sounds fascinating. And it was sad because we're not in a good place, but he said that he believes that libraries can help advocate, and that we need to work together to make sure that we are framing a better future, so that we are not continuing down sometimes this dark path that we seem to be on in certain areas like net neutrality. So it was really good. Did Dave or Scott, did you guys see him? No?
Did you go?
I
did Jane?
I would echo what you said. He was very impressive.
Yeah, he was. I mean, and he gave, I'm not doing it justice, but that's what I mean.
I would also say that Steve Pemberton, who was another one of the big idea speakers, was excellent. He was removed from his mother. He never knew his father, was removed from his mother for neglect at the age of 3 or 4, and unfortunately grew up in a very abusive foster home. So he spoke to how reading and libraries were his lifeline, or as he called it, his secret weapon. And it was very touching how an early encounter with the librarian, a very brief encounter that probably was just, routine for the librarian, was a turning point in his life. And a follow-up question to the effect about, what about our policies for unintended children? It was very thought-provoking in that. Of course, we need policies like that so that, libraries aren't being disrupted and the children are safe, but you also need to be careful that you're not removing that interaction that could be life-changing for a person. So I read his autobiography, A Chance in the World, on the way home, and it was horrifying and compelling, so I would recommend it to you.
Is it like at the same level as A Child Called It?
I have not read that one.
Okay.
What's the name of the book again?
That is really rough.
I'm sorry?
A Chance in the World.
Will it make me feel like all of humanity is irredeemable?
Yes, but it will also give you hope.
Okay.
For the strength of human spirit to overcome it.
Okay. Dee, would you like to share any
Sure.
of your...
Well, I'm from the library school curriculum item. So I went to, this was a program that was led by Susan Hildreth, who used to be the director of Institute for Museum and Library Services, and she has, for the past 2 years, been the Distinguished practitioner in residence at the University of Washington Library School, which means that she's there to teach as somebody who's been in the real world of libraries, but she's also required in that position to do a research project. And the research project that she did was on the perceived/real gaps between library school curriculum and what employers really want librarians, new librarians, whatever, to know and be able to do. And so the program was about the process and how they went about this, and they used a survey, which is very interesting. That I mentioned the survey showed that employers want the things that we've been hearing librarians say they want during our strategic planning listening, because of issues about the diversity of patrons and social issues and in society, in the world, and so it was about that libraries want people who have cultural competencies. And I can send this out to people, to the survey.
That would
very
be wonderful.
Interesting. Yeah, I will. But I was particularly interested also just that the library school is doing this, and that they, of course, they have Gates money. That certainly helps, but they got together a group of students, employers, and faculty at the library school to do collaborative design of curriculum. And man, that is really good. That is great. And I am going to bring it up with our local library school, particularly Dominican, because I think that would be good. So I'll send out the survey. It's very interesting. I also met with Baker and Taylor about our e-read program, and still trying to get some things moving forward there. And I also had a brief but very good conversation with a person at Gale about just a ballpark price of a statewide database, because people ask us for that all the time. Why doesn't Illinois have a foundational database from Gale or EBSCO that every library would have access to? Just general. Those are the big vendors. I'm not saying they're the only ones, and most states do this. And she said, probably, between $1 million and $1.5 million, which is not an insurmountable price tag. So I think it's something for us to think about with the state library, perhaps, as well. So, so that was very helpful, because I had no idea, given the size of the state, what it might cost. So.
That sounds really interesting.
I know, right? I was
Yes.
excited. Yeah, everybody would love that.
Do we have anyone else that attended that would like to weigh in or share? Okay. We're a very chatty bunch today.
Yeah, great.
Yeah. One other thing? No?
Yeah. The Denver Public Library has just worked with Quipu, which is the company that has a software platform for our Explore More, our Museum Pass program. And Denver Public Library has just launched online library card registration in a massive way.
Yeah.
So I'm interested in that because of
Solely online?
Unserved. I'm sorry?
Solely online?
No,
Or just as
but
an
just
add-on? Oh, okay.
Yeah, I don't think so, but I thought that was interesting, and because I've always had this. It's like we do this. Yes, we have all these great electronic resources, and yes, you can use the library. We're open 24/7. But if you want a library card, you have to come in. And there just seems to be something wrong about that. So. I'm very interested to see, and it made me think about the unserved. There might be a way for us to, provide library cards in a very efficient way. So anyway.
29th. Yeah. It was a really good conference. And I think one of the values for me in going to these is always not only the sessions, which are, I really love PLA. It's my favorite conference, but it also is the people that you meet from other states. I always appreciated ILA meeting people from all over the state from different types of libraries, but it's really fascinating at PLA. They'll ask a question like, are you from a small, mid-size, or large library? And how people see themselves and how they define themselves. Like, to me, I feel like we're a large library. But when you look at our size nationally, we are tiny, or maybe mid-size, and so there's such a wide variety and scope, and there's so many interesting people that you meet, and the conversations that you have in kind of the in-between really can help bring just as much richness as the talks that you go to, at least for me. So. All right, well, does anyone have any other comments or questions about the Public Library Association? Okay, well then we will move on to Rails board member reports. A chance for you to share something interesting or just informative going on at your libraries. Does anyone have anything that they'd like to share? Gwen.
So a couple of weeks ago, the University of Illinois at Chicago Library and the Northwestern University Library co-hosted the Association of Research Libraries initiative to recruit a diverse workforce session, which is, it's like a year-long program. Then the two libraries together hosted the participants to all come to Chicago. Miranda Pitchford was one of the panelists. Thank you for doing that. And I think it was a great group of people who are in library school right now. And so this is a kind of a development opportunity where they get to do a lot of different things all through the year. I think they go to the ALA conference, and then they have this with different workshops, and they have other activities. So this is the first year that we have hosted it in Chicago. Usually some research library will host it. I think most recently it was Michigan State did it for some years. But now we're trying to do it in this collaborative way. So bringing these students to Chicago area and, helping them get a foot in the door with academic libraries.
That's fantastic. Cool. Well, I look forward to I would love to hear more as it progresses, because this is something that certainly is not singular to just academic libraries, but that I think we're all trying to make sure that we have a diverse workforce, and what can we do to encourage and bring that into our organization. So thanks, Gwen. Scott.
Sad to report that March 20th, my library's referendum did not pass. It was our fourth attempt at an operating rate increase. It's the same plan each time, but we gained a huge amount of ground. We got up to 46% yes votes. This was the first election where I really had kind of secretly harbored a glimmer of hope because there was really a buzz in the community. We used social media more and to greater effect this time, and it was kind of gratifying to see all the support on social media ahead of time and the outpouring of sort of condolences and in some cases outrage after the fact that it didn't pass.
That's a good feeling, actually.
So I'm hoping that we can, kind of keep the momentum going and maybe be on the ballot maybe this November and cross the finish line finally. But it's tough, and there is not organized resistance in any way, shape, or form, but there was resistance, and a very vocal resident of one of my towns, a couple days leading up to the election, and then for about a week afterwards, did nothing but attack the library. And he wants to start a GoFundMe campaign to, hire an attorney to disband our library district. Sorry, I shouldn't laugh, but
it's just so baffling.
Right. So yeah, it's challenging, but we'll keep after it.
Sorry to hear that.
Yeah.
Sorry about that.
It was $1.40. It was $1.40 per month for the average home. $16.80 per year is what we were asking for. outrageous, I know.
Does anyone have
Mystifying.
anything else they'd like to share, preferably something happy?
Yes,
If
this
you can.
is Laura in Freeport.
Hey, Laura.
Hey, I wanted to say that my library is going to start a new program series, and it's similar to what other libraries host living history presenters, but we've decided to do a whole series of them on the theme of 19th century authors. So throughout the rest of this year, we're going to have visits from Louisa May Alcott, Walt Whitman, Edgar Allan Poe, Laura Ingalls Wilder, and Sarah Josepha Hale.
Nice.
So I'm very excited about that.
That sounds wonderful.
Yeah, very cool.
That's very, very cool.
Thanks. Personally, as was mentioned before, I have been accepted into Elevate, so I'm really excited about that. And so I'll see some of you there in late April. And also, as I've told many of you, the conference that I've been working on coordinating for 2 years is going to happen in less than 3 weeks. So personally, I'm very, very busy, and I am thrilled to have the support of the Freeport Public Library, because many of the meetings will actually take place here in the library, which is great, so that our association doesn't have to find like a hotel and pay their conference costs.
Wonderful collaboration.
Yep, great.
Yep.
Thanks, Laura. Do we have any updates by anyone on the phone?
Nothing from Kiwani.
Okay. All right, that sounds wonderful. Well, then, we're almost to the finish line. We just have agenda building for the next Rails board meeting, and I know Dee has already mentioned this, but the main meeting location will be at the East Peoria Service Center on Friday, April 27th. There will be a networking event and lunch that will begin at 11:30 a.m. I would encourage all board members to attend at East Peoria if you can. I'm very sorry that I'm not going to be there. I always love going down to East Peoria and to all of the sites and meeting staff and other local libraries. So it's a wonderful opportunity to see a little bit more of Rails. I was jotting down just a couple things, but it looks like we're going to have a fairly busy agenda in April between standards and our BiblioBoard presentation, the draft of the area and per capita grant, the capital projects fund review. Actually, that's all I have, but that's...
I think that's it. Yep, that's enough.
Does anyone have anything else that they would like to see on preferably not the April agenda, but a future agenda? All right, well then, I will wish everyone a happy April Fool's / Easter / Passover or just weekend, whichever you prefer, and declare this meeting adjourned at 2:14 p.m. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone. Thanks for calling.